Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I don't know what idea you have over daffodils. Daffodils are yellow colored flowers, mustard yellow, which are found commonly grown in woodlands, grounds. In England, it is found in abundance. In India, it is grown, which is commonly known as Nargis. This poem, composed by William Wordsworth, the poet of nature, he was a high priest of nature, a great lover of nature. He was one of the greatest poets of the Romantic age in the history of English literature. One of his classic poems that he became famous for was this poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, which is titled as Daffodils. The poem, in short, is just one of the experiences of William Wordsworth on one of his leisurely walks. Once he was on his walk with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth. Though his sister was with him, but as poets are usually by nature very meditative, they remain by themselves, they remain with themselves, they remain in their own mood, in their own world, they do not feel the presence of someone else. Same was the condition of William Wordsworth on that particular day when he was on his walk with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth, but he never felt the presence of, he did not feel the presence of his sister with him. Nowhere in the poem has he mentioned that his sister was with him. It was only his feelings which he has explained. So as he was going, all of a sudden, he saw beside a lake, on the margin of the lake, on the edge of the lake, a great belt, a great stretch of yellow colored daffodils growing in full bloom. Full yellow it looked. There were comparisons, lot of comparisons are there which he compared himself to. He compared the flowers to those that explained by line. Won't explaining the poem line by line. That is the only experience that he had. He fell in love with that particular sight maybe. He liked that sight so much. Also that sight made him or was so attractive for him. So bewitching a sight it was. So attractive a sight was it that he stayed there for a long time. He went on looking at that or at those daffodils, at that particular sight of daffodils which were moving to and fro when the breeze blew over them, and just went on looking at them. For a long time he gazed at those flowers and finally he left the place. At the time he did not realize, at the time he did not think that this particular sight one day will prove for him a great source of happiness. And then it's mentioned sometimes whenever he lies on his couch, on his bed, in any sad state of mind or any lonely state of mind, that particular sight of dancing daffodils comes as a flashback to his mind, and he becomes so happy, forgetting his loneliness, forgetting his sadness, forgetting his sorrow, whatever the cause is. He forgets all these things, and he starts becoming, or he feels an ecstatic state. He feels very happy, as if his heart gets filled with happiness and his heart starts dancing with those daffodils. Now, William Wordsworth has proved his definition of poem or definition of poetry in this particular piece of his writing. According to him, poetry is an overflow of emotions recollected in tranquility. Overflow of emotions, expressions flowing out of expressions, coming out of expressions. Coming out is the expressions. Coming out of what? Feelings, emotions. Which, those emotions, not the present emotion, not the emotion that come at the present site. Emotions which are recollected, remembered, recalled of the past. Recollected, recalled of the past. When recollected, in calm state of mind, in tranquility, in calmness, in calm state of mind, when a man remains very calm, sits quietly, and the past experiences flashes back to his mind, he recalls those, and then comes out the expression of his feelings, and that is what his poetry is, according to William Wordsworth. And he has proved this. He saw the daffodils. He did not compose the poem at that site. He came out from that site, came away from that particular place. Later, when that flashed back to his mind and he remembered about those things and he feels very happy, his heart fills with pleasure and his heart dances with daffodils, then came out his expressions of his feelings in the form of the poetry that we are going to read is Daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud, which is the first line of the poem, which is entitled as Daffodils. So, poetry, according to him, is an overflow of emotions collected in tranquility, and this is one of the greatest example of that definition of poetry which he saw. He did not compose the poem at the time. Later he came back, and when those came back to his mind, he recollected those, and there was an expression of his feelings which came out in the form of a poem. Now, the form and structure, whenever we read a poem, we get a form and structure. What is the form of the poem? The poem is a lyric. What is a lyric? Lyric is a song which is written in such a way that it can be sung with a lyre. L-Y-R-E. Lyre was a string musical instrument. That means it has a rhythm to be sung with any musical instrument. So this poem, the form of the poem, it is a lyric. Structure. How are the lines written? In which form are the lines? And what is the rhyme pattern of the rhyme scheme of the poem? So you can see, count the lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines in each stanza. So the poem is a lyric written in how many stanzas are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. The poem is a lyric written in 4 stanzas of 6 lines each. You can write in a very simple way, 6 lines each. And each line rhyming pattern is, or each stanza rhyming pattern is A, B, A, B, C, C. How to find out? Go to the last word of each line. First word, first line, last word, cloud. Next line, last word, hills. Are they rhyming with each other, cloud and hills? No. Come to the third line. Crowd. Crowd rhyming with cloud. So, if we mark cloud as A, then crowd also becomes A. So, cloud, A, hills, the next letter B, small a, small b. Then crowd, A again. Come to daffodils rhyming with hills. So, A, B, A, B. Come to the fifth line, trees. Are they rhyming with A, B? No. So, next letter, that is C. Next line, last line of first stanza, in the breeze. Trees, breeze. C, C. So the first stanza is A, B, A, B, C, C. Next stanza, if you see the same, then the rhyming pattern is same for the whole poem. The next stanza also same. Shine A, way B, line A, bay B, A, B, A, B, glance, dance, C, C. So the rhyming pattern of each stanza is A, B, A, B, C, C. You'll find other two stanzas also the same. So the poem is a lyric written in 4 stanzas of 6 lines each, of which each stanza has a rhyming scheme of rhyming pattern of A, B, A, B, C, C. This is the formal structure. We'll start. I read the poem. I don't know how far you have understood, but I'll explain each word, each line. There are lots of figures of speech. You know what parts of speech are? Noun, pronoun, adjective, verb, adverb, preposition, conjunction, interjection. Those are parts of speech in English grammar, what you have studied. But in English literature, we say figure of speech or figures of speech. Speech, what we speak is figure of speech. What we speak is presented in a very attractive way, in an ornamental way, decorative way, which makes your words appear more beautiful, more attractive, attracts the attention of the readers. It calls for the appreciation of the readers. That is what technically we say, or literary device, what we say is figure of speech. The device or the method which is used to decorate your writing, adorn your writing, make your writing appear more beautiful, is what is the work of a figure of speech. Now, very simple sentence. She is very beautiful. She looks like a rose. No, she is very beautiful. Figure of speech used. She is a rose. She is a rose. Immediately, your mind will, wow, what a writing. She is a rose. She will not say. We understand what is the meaning. The man is brave. The man fought very bravely in the battlefield. Very strongly in the battlefield. Very strong he was. The man was a lion in the battlefield. Figure of speech. All those figures of speech will come along. In this poem there are a lot. The very first line there is figure of speech. What we say is simile. S-I-M-I-L-E. Simile. Simile is a figure. No need to write. Listen to me properly. I'll give you every note. Simile is a figure of speech in which one thing is compared to another thing with the help of a word like or as. Very simple explanation. It is a comparison, it is a figure of speech in which two things are compared. One thing is said to be like another. She is like a rose. She is as cool as a cucumber. He is as slow as a tortoise. As, the word as. He is compared with tortoise because the tortoise is also slow, he is also slow. And the slowness makes the two creatures equal. And the word that is used, she is like a tortoise, he is like a tortoise, or he is as slow as a tortoise. So both the word like or as is used to compare these two things with the word as or like. And where this comparison is shown with the help of words as or like, it is called a simile. S-I-M-I-L-E. The first line of the poem. I wandered lonely as a cloud. Wandered, W-A. W-O-N-D-E-R-E-D, wondered, that is thought, deeply thought. I wandered. Wandered, W-A-N-D-E-R-E-D, wandered, roamed around, moved around, roaming around. As I told you in the beginning itself, William Wordsworth was on his leisurely walk with his sister Dorothy Wordsworth, but in this poem we will nowhere find about his sister mentioned, because I told you, though he was in the company of his sister, but he did not feel the presence of his sister with him. He was in his own world, as usually poets are. I wandered, that's why he says I wandered lonely. I wandered lonely as a cloud. See the comparison. He is lonely, wandering or roaming around or walking all alone. He compares himself with the cloud in the sky. You must have seen sometimes a cloud, a single cloud floating on the sky. You must have seen that. So that is what he compares himself to. He compares himself with a cloud. He says, I wandered lonely as a cloud. That which cloud? That floats on high over vales and hills. O apostrophe ER. Where apostrophe is used, that means the letter is missing there. And which letter is missing there? V. Over. That floats on high over hills and vales and hills. Vales, valleys. Hills and valleys. Hills and valleys. You must have read what is a hill and what is a valley. So he was all alone, or rather in his mind he was alone, in his thought he was all alone, walking, and his lonely walking is compared to a cloud that seems to float all alone in the sky above the hills and valleys. So as he was moving, now this poem, as I told you, he did not write at that moment when he composed it. He did not write when he saw it. Sorry. He did not compose when he saw it. He wrote it days later, when he was in a pensive mood, and that sight came back to him, and he recollected that sight in tranquility, and there was an expression of his emotions for these daffodils, and he expressed his emotions, and the result was the poem that we have in our hand, Daffodils. When all at once, suddenly, I saw a crowd. He saw a crowd compared to crowd of people. Crowd, the word crowd we use for the crowd of people. There is a figure of speech, what we say, personification, in which it is a figure of speech in which any non-living thing or any abstract concept or idea is given person or human-like, man-like attributes or qualities, not qualities, attributes. That non-living thing is said to be personified, given human attributes. Non-living thing which cannot move. You know what is non-living thing? Non-living things cannot move. But that quality of movement, or so to say that attribute of moving, that characteristic of moving, if it is given to any non-living thing, then we say that non-living thing is personified. And the figure of speech what we use is at the time is called personification. The word crowd, usually used for human beings, crowd of men, crowd of people. So he uses that word because he saw a huge production, a huge amount. A host, he said, we saw a crowd, a host, a group, a large amount of golden daffodils. Why golden daffodils? As I told you, daffodils, the yellow colored flowers, and instead of using the word yellow, he has used the word golden, which will make the object of description more attractive to the readers. Golden daffodils. So all of it, he was just moving and he saw all at once, he saw a crowd of golden daffodils. Where did he see those? Beside the lake, by the side of the lake. The lake was there, and by the side of the lake, in a row, in a length, in a line, in a row, he saw those daffodils. Beside the lake, where beneath the trees, there were cluster of trees, or maybe there were row of trees also beside the lake, and under the trees there were small plants of daffodils. What were they doing? Fluttering, fluttering, moving, fluttering and dancing. See the word dancing in the breeze. How can flowers dance? How can plants dance? Dance is the attribute or the characteristic of living things, of human beings, of men, of women, of boys, girls. So the attribute or the characteristic feature of dancing is attributed or given to whom? To the flowers. When he saw the flowers, the gentle breeze was blowing, he saw the flowers moving to and fro, this side, that side, and it seemed to him as if they were dancing in the breeze. Personification. The word dancing. The word dancing personifies the flowers. As if the flowers were the people, they were dancing. It's just the movement of the flowers. Continuous as the stars that shine. As the stars. As the word as. Continuous as whom? As the stars. So again there is a comparison. Again there is a simile. S-I-M-I-L-E. I repeat, S-I-M-I-L-E. Continuous. They were continuous. Who were continuous? Who had continuously grown? Daffodils. Daffodils had grown continuously. How? With whom are they compared? They are compared to the stars that shine. Where? In the sky. If you look up at the sky, especially the night sky, when you look at day sky, you cannot see the stars. That you know by night sky. When you look up, you'll find lot of stars, innumerable stars, countless stars in the sky. Continuous. They keep on shining continuously in the night sky. Just like those, that numerous, innumerable stars. The idea of innumerable stars has been presented here. Just as the stars are uncountable, they keep on shining. They keep on continuous in a continuous constellations. So to say, in their own constellations, there are a lot of stars in the sky. That next line you'll find that constellation mentioned. Twinkle on the Milky Way. What is Milky Way? The constellation of stars. What we say in our constellation is Akashganga or Milky Way. So continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle, shine on the Milky Way. Twinkle in the sense they keep on glimmering, or so to say, they keep on shining. Continuous as the stars that shine, yes. Continues as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, just as we find number of innumerable stars in the Milky Way. Similarly, were these, again the word as has been used, and so there is a simile use of simile. Similarly, they means who? Third line, they refers to the daffodils. They stretched themselves as if the line has been stretched somewhere to long length. They stretched in never-ending line. How is that line? As if the line has not or will never come to an end. It is such a long line. He went on looking and he could not, as if he could not see the end of the line that the daffodils had beside the lake, or by the side of the lake, along the border of the lake. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. Bay, big water body. So it is a lake here. Lake is referred to as the bay. Margin is the border, boundary. So along the edge of the lake, along the margin of the lake, these beautiful daffodils had grown, and they grew in a long length of line, which seems to have no end. So never ending line along the margin of the bay. 10,000 saw at a glance. At a glance, at one look. Is it possible? At one look. Maybe 10,000 is possible, maybe 1,000 is not possible. 10,000. There is a figure of speech, what is called hyperbole. 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 Which means exaggeration. 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 That means, exaggeration means speaking of something in a very highly manner, describing it and giving it very high appreciation. That is what is called exaggeration. But in your Odia, as if you say, bodhi ki koiba, bodhi ki koiba. That is exaggeration. And that in figurative speech we say, or figurative language we say hyperbole. Hyperbole. He says, the poet says, he saw at one look. At just one look he saw as if 10,000 flowers were there in front of him. 10,000, can you imagine the number? It seems he's giving a hyperbolic expression over here. Exaggerative expression. 10,000 saw at a glance. What were they doing? Tossing their heads. Moving, tossing, nodding their heads in sprightly dance. They were dancing. Again the word dance. And how was the dance? The dance was very merry dance, a cheerful dance. Sprightly, cheerfully they were dancing. Merrily they were dancing. So the dance is also said to be as if they were very happy. Who were very happy? As if the flowers were very happy to grow there, and they were very happy to bloom there, and they were dancing over there. That is said, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced. The waves. It was beside the lake. It is mentioned that there were waves. So you must be thinking, how come waves in the lake? It is, the waves refer to the rippling movements of water in the lake. Ripples. When the breeze blows over the surface of the water, you find there is some rhythmic movements, or so to say some disturbances on the surface of the water. That is what the waves mention. And when the water in the lake were moving, as if it's a poetical expression, how the poet feels. We common people will say, the wind blew and there was a movement in the water in the lake. The poet presents this movement in the term of waves. And waves, they were dancing. So not only the daffodils were dancing, not only were the daffodils dancing, the poet found the waves in the lake also dancing. The waves beside them referring to daffodils, the waves beside them danced. They were also dancing. But in the sense immediately he is going to compare, or so to say contrast, not compare, it's contrast. The word but itself tells it is. There is some contrast. But they referring to the daffodils. They outdid, past tense of outdo. What is outdoing someone? When you surpass somebody in some act, in some work, you do better than the other one. That is called surpassing. You are passing over them. In the sense you are doing better than the other one. That is outdoing. That is surpassing. So two things are mentioned here to be dancing. One is the flowers, there's the daffodils, another the waves in the lake. Both were dancing, as the poet mentions. But when the word but itself comes, the poet wants to say that the dance of the daffodils seems to be better, or seems to be more cheerful than the dance of the waves. But they surpassed, they outdid, they surpassed the sparkling waves. The waves are described, an epithet has been used. What is an epithet? What in English grammar, what we say adjective. In literature, we should say that as we call that as epithet. E-P-I-T-H-E-T, epithet. That which describes a noun. Say here the waves are said to be sparkling, shining. Maybe the sun rays were falling on it, on the water. There was a shine. The sparkling waves in glee. So who surpassed whom? Who outdid whom? The waves were outdone by the daffodils. The daffodils outdid, surpassed. The daffodils outdid the waves in what? In glee, in happiness. Glee means happiness. So both were happy, and so both were dancing. Now you are not going to dance in a sad mood. You will be dancing when you are singing in a cheerful mood, in a happy state of mind. So both were in a happy state of mind. The flowers also, as well as the waves. But one was more happy, rather happier than the other. Who was happier? The daffodils were happier than the waves. So the daffodils surpassed or outdid the waves in happiness. A poet could not, a poet here refers to any poet. He himself mentioned that any poet who comes here, who is really a poet in the true sense of the term, especially a poet who loves nature as he is a lover of nature. Any poet, if he comes here and if he finds himself in such a company, what is the company? Who is the company, or who are the company of William Wordsworth here? Nature all around. Daffodils, trees, lakes, all these things. So he says any poet as he is a lover of nature, if any poet of that sort comes here and finds himself in such a company, what sort of company is this? Jocund company, jolly company, happy, merry company. Company in the sense those companions who were with him, they were in a very happy state of mind. in a livelier state, in a lively state, in a cheerful mood, in a happy mood. And any poet like as he is, like him, if he comes here, if he finds himself in such a company as he is, what sort of company? Jocund company. A poet could not but be gay. A could not but here means the poet cannot but, in the sense he will be bound to. If a poet like him comes to this place, he will be bound to be gay or happy. Gay means happy, cheer, merry. So in such a company as the daffodils and the waves both dancing, and the daffodils surpassing the waves in happiness, both were dancing, both were in a happy state, all around beautiful nature, as Wordsworth found. If any poet comes here, a poet will be bound to be happy. He could not but be gay, he will be bound to be happy. So what he did when he felt that happiness in him, or when he felt he saw something which brought, he was in a lonely state of mind, and something which diverted his mind from his loneliness to this sight, it made him feel pleasure, feel delighted. Then what he did? I gazed and gazed. I went on gazing. Gazed means give, G-A-Z-E, gaze means give fixed looks. Stared, S-T-A-R-E-D, gazed, stared. I kept on looking. See, repetition. There is a word which is repeated. Gazed. So he could have written I gazed at it. But the poet intentionally has used a figure of speech here, repeated the word here, and any repetition in any literary poem, or so to say any literature, a poem or a story where it is, you find there is repetition, there is only one purpose behind it, and that is giving an emphasis or giving a stress to the particular idea that the poet wants to convey to the readers. And here the poet wants to emphasize the way that he kept on looking at the daffodils, being attracted towards it. He was so much attracted. I told you in the beginning, it was so bewitching a sight, so attractive a sight, that he went on looking. He did not even turn his attention towards anything else. That is what he wants to say, repeating the word gazed and gazed. I gazed and gazed, but when I was gazing, when I was looking at it, but little thought, I did not almost think. Little means almost no. A little means something. Little means almost no. I did not think at all. Even the slightest thought did not come to my mind. Even for a moment I did not think. A little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. That show, that sight, that spectacle, there is a sight, the scene that he had. What? It is a very simple scene. In the eyes of a common man, it is a very simple scene. What? Just a lake, some trees, beneath the trees some daffodils growing, maybe a large number of daffodils growing, yellow color it was spread. And we common people, we must have seen it and we are in wow, what a great scene, and then we might have left. But he also at that moment was, no doubt, he was happy. But one thought did not enter to his mind, which came later, which he realized later. The thought did not come to his mind at that moment, that that particular sight, that particular show had brought for him a great wealth, a great treasure for his life. Treasure? Wealth? What wealth? What is the treasure that he got? Did he get hidden treasure over there, filled with jewels and ornaments and money? No, it's not that wealth that he's talking of. He got a wealth which at that time he did not even realize, he did not think. That means he did not even realize at that moment that this particular site had earned for him a great treasure, a great wealth for his future life. Later, as I told you, poetry according to him is an overflow of emotions recollected in tranquility. He did not compose this poem at that moment. After that, that was the experience that he had. This much. At the time, he did not think that what he gained. He just was happy at that moment. He went on looking at that particular beautiful sight, marvelous sight, or such a wonderful sight, whatever you can say. And then he left the place. That was over for that day. Later, some other day, he mentions as for oft. For why it is a wealth? Because he mentions it. For reason he is mentioning why he considers it as wealth and how it is a wealth. Oft, short form of often, many times. Many times it happened with him. Many times he got that feeling, and then in one of the times he brought out an expression in the form of this poem, that is Daffodils. For oft when on my couch I lie, for many times whenever I lie down on my couch, string bed, or so to say bed, which we say string bed. In his couch, whenever he lies down, in a vacant mood. What is a vacant mood? Empty state of mind. No such great thoughts come. At the just normal, no such great thought comes to his mind. Or in a pensive mood, vacant or pensive. Pensive, sad. So in a vacant or in sad mood, whenever he comes and lies down on his, or lay down, whenever he came and lay down on his bed, maybe he closes his eyes, he closed his eyes, and then what happens? They flash upon his inward eye. Do you have an inward eye? All of us, we have an inward eye. What is that? Inward eye means eye inside. Is there an eye inside? Your mind, your heart, your body, your head, where is it? It is our imagination. When we recall things back, it comes back as if we can, when you close our eyes, suppose you close your eyes and keep on thinking of some past incident that had happened with you, it seems as if it is happening in front of you at that time. You can see. That is what is called inward eye. The eye which is not visible to anybody else. We don't have a third eye like as it is believed gods have. We have an eye which is inside and that makes us recall and see the past things, or that helps us imagine something. You close your eyes and imagine. You see pictures. Suppose you're imagining you are in some nice beautiful place in Kashmir or anywhere or Switzerland, and you start imagining this picture that you have seen. Those things will come back to your thoughts, and as if really you were there, start feeling. That is what is imagination, the power of imagination is. So whenever he lay in a vacant or pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye. They flash. They come back to that imagination. They come in as if a flash of a light. We say there's a light and we can see everything. It comes in a comes to his back to his mind, and that becomes the bliss of solitude. Solitude, loneliness. Loneliness, solitude. Bliss, happiness. That maybe at the time also he would be lonely, lying in a vacant or pensive mood on his couch. But the moment there is a flash, or that particular sight of the dancing daffodils comes back to his inward eye, he can see those in his inward eyes. That moment becomes a state of, or that becomes, so that moment brings his feeling of happiness in his loneliness. He feels happy. So when he saw those daffodils, at the time also he was very happy, and then he forgot, and whenever he recollects that sight of the dancing daffodils beside the lake beneath the trees, that brings him a feeling of happiness. If he is lonely, that happiness becomes his happiness in his loneliness. That is bliss of solitude. And then what happens? He becomes happy, and then what happens? His heart, my heart with pleasure fills. My heart gets filled up. He becomes so happy that his heart gets filled up, full, teemed with. Filled up with what? Pleasure, happiness, delight. He becomes very happy. He feels a sense of great happiness in his heart. And then he feels his heart getting very happy, starts dancing with the daffodils, as if that particular scene is no more in the past, it is now in front of him. He just visualizes the past scene in the present with his maybe his closed eyes, in such a way as if the daffodils are in front of him and they are dancing and the waves are dancing and his heart also is dancing. And dances with the daffodils. This is what his experience was when he saw the daffodils, and later impact of that particular sight of dancing daffodils on his later life. And this particular poem proves what he had defined poetry as I told you, poetry as he had defined is an overflow of powerful emotions. It is an overflow of emotions expressed, or so to say, it is an overflow of emotions recollected in tranquility, in calm state of. So when he saw the daffodils, at the time there was no expressions of his emotion. He just enjoyed the sight. He went on looking at the sight, gazed and gazed and gazed. At the time he did not realize what this particular sight is going to have, how this particular sight is going to have an impact on his future life in the later days. And later, whenever he lay on his couch in a vacant or pensive mood, that particular sight of dancing daffodils comes back to his mind in a flash and makes him so happy in his lonely state of mind, and that his heart gets filled with pleasure and his heart starts dancing with the daffodils. And that is the wealth that he has mentioned in the third stanza. At the time he did not think what wealth this show to me had brought. This wealth has already been earned by him in the day that he had experienced or he had seen the daffodils. But at the time he did not realize. He felt it, he realized it only when he recollects the dancing of the daffodils in his lonely state of mind, and then he feels that happiness inside. So it has the power of transforming, that particular sight had the power of transforming a vacant state of mind, a pensive state of mind, to a happy state of mind. That is what is the wealth that he is talking of. He is not talking of any riches. He is not talking of money. He is not talking of jewelry. He is not talking of any precious stones as the wealth. He's talking of the power of transforming, changing a sad state of mind to a very happy state of mind. Bliss of solitude, which has the power to bring happiness to a solitary state of mind, to solitude. And that is the wealth that he is talking of. The wealth the show to me had brought is this power, is the happiness that he gets in his lonely state of mind, that he gets in his pensive or sad state of mind. He all of a sudden becomes happy in his sad state also. He feels happiness and his heart starts dancing with the daffodils. There is another figure of speech in this poem which I haven't yet discussed, and that is alliteration. Personification I told, simile I told, hyperbole I told, personification I told. Alliteration. Alliteration is a figure of speech in which there is a stretch of repeated consonantal sounds, not consonants. Consonantal sounds repeated at a stretch. Gazed, I gazed and gazed. What is repeated? Which one? G sound. It is a figure of speech in which a consonantal sound is repeated at a stretch, and the repetition is done in the stressed syllables. So it's gazed, G sound repeated, gazed. When you write G, it is G. But when you put G in single inverted commas, it becomes a sound. It no more remains a letter. I'll discuss all those things again. So it is the G sound repeated, and so it is called an alliteration. Beside the lake, beneath the trees. Beside the lake, beneath the trees. Which is the sound repeated? B sound repeated. Beside B. Beneath B. So there is also an example of alliteration. Repetition of consonants. I hope you know what consonants are. So repetition of consonantal sounds at a stretch, and the repetitions are at the stressed syllables. That is what is called alliteration. And here this alliteration is the beside the lake, beneath the trees, that line. How to write that I'll explain. And then, as I told you, gazed, I gazed and gazed, G sound repeated. All these are examples of alliteration in the. This is what is daffodils about.